Get laid with this one weird trick. Click here. What's up, everybody? It's ya boy again, the Unibonger, and today I am bringing you my review of Merry Boys, the Comicsgate comic book that is hopefully, for your sake, still available on Indiegogo because, spoiler alert, Merry Boys is...
Hot fire.
What? You didn't quite catch that? Merry Boys is...
That flame emoji, flame emoji, flame emoji.
If you love comic books, what you need to do right now is scroll down and click on the link below to the Merry Boys Indiegogo page, and you need to hope that you're watching this in a quick enough time frame that this comic is still available, because you need to do yourself a favor and buy it now. Anyway, but let me get to a proper review on this. So, Merry Boys, I should say, is actually two comic books here technically. Number 1 and number 2, and they've got a shared storyline. It's just kind of one story. Basically, it kind of starts out with these 4 Merry Boys. They all look pretty similar for some reason that we'll kind of get into the second issue here. But they are Harry, Chaz, Philip, and William. And what they're kind of doing at the beginning of this story is coming to from a blackout, and they start beating the shit out of these local street toughs. Chavs, I think it's kind of Great Britain street slang. And from reading this description, I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, we've got something like that too over here. We call them wiggers, though. But anyway, they're coming to from a blackout. They just kicked the shit out of a bunch of wiggers, chavs, whatever. They found some pedos in the park and beat the fucking shit out of them. They found a drug dealer and made him OD on his own fucking drugs. And, you know, some other general sort of mischief sort of things. You know, it's a comic book. Also, let's get this out of the way, too. So, Merry Boys, there's 4 of them. They're all kind of Templar Knights in the 21st century, kind of in this fucked up society that we got going on now. But if you can't kind of tell already, this isn't like a ripoff of, but it's kind of a general homage to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, especially with the independent comics aesthetic, black and white interiors. A huge difference here, though, is these black and white interiors, what they are basically is ink wash, I think is what it's called. So it's got this painted look to it, but it's all in black and white and gray tones. But anyway, they kick the shit out of these street toughs, and then they go back to the church as the cops kind of chase them off. And at the church, we are introduced to Father Parrish, who is kind of the master splinter of this whole situation. And then we kind of get this origin story of Father Parrish, actually, and basically how this little Great Britain town they've been living in over the past however many years has really been going into the shitter, because the big thing that they kind of point out is there is a 24-hour superstore here, much like Walmart, called Asbo, I think. And it's basically like Great Britain Walmart, as far as I can tell. I hope I'm saying that right, and I don't know, maybe Asbo is a real thing over there, maybe not. Maybe it's a pretty similar parody. I don't know. I can't tell for sure exactly. But, you know, then we've got some scenes of Father Parrish kind of railing against the Asbo. It's pretty comedic. Then we kind of go a little bit further into Father Parrish's origin story, where basically the town's going to shit, and this dude with a gun fucking follows him to the church and says, hey, give me your fucking money. I don't have any money. Well, then give me your fucking booze. And Father Parrish flips out and fucking smacks this fucking attacker, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, my boy, I didn't mean to do that. And then the attacker fucking shoots him in the head, and we go to the next issue. This next issue on this opening splash page, I'm getting a real sort of EC Comics, Tales from the Crypt kind of vibe from this, kind of the Crypt Keeper opening page, where the Crypt Keeper will kind of talk to you for a minute, give you the setup, and then we kind of head on into the story. Maybe I'm right on that, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know for sure. Since we're at this point of it, I'll kind of say that some of the influences I get from this are Eric Powell, with not only the artwork and kind of the painted feel of the artwork with the gray tones, but also just kind of the dark humor of the story as well. That's something that's kind of in the Goon fairly frequently if you've ever read that. I also get a little bit of Frank Miller vibes from this too, especially on basically that page in the first issue where it shows the Pope and the doves kind of flying around his head. But anyway, we continue on with Father Parrish's origin story, and after he gets shot in the head, he recovers, but he's different now, and he's basically kind of this ass kicker for the Lord, and, these local toughs try to rough him up, and he ends up kicking the shit out of all of them. And then we actually get into maybe kind of and then we get into the real origin story of our Mary Boys here, where basically Father Parrish just beats the shit out of these guys, and he's kind of running away, and he goes to basically the local abortion clinic. And he sees these dogs getting into a dumpster. And then he sees what these dogs have gotten into, which is aborted baby parts. And he shoos them off. And inside this dumpster, he actually finds 4 living babies. Now, I'll tell you what, we'll go to a whole aside here. I guess a big part of what Comicsgate is trying to say, hey, we're against having political things in our stories. We want to make them inclusive for everybody, and we want them to be escapist fiction, and we don't want them to have anything to do with the real world and this and that and the other. And yeah, that's fine, and that's great, and that's one thing. But I'll tell you what, on this part of it, when I actually read this and figured out what was really going on here, that basically the origin of these 4 Mary Boys is they are 4 abortions that miraculously survived being aborted. There's a lot of people that I would guess would really turn up their nose at this point of the story and go, no, it's not for me, and oh, I'm sick of this, and you shouldn't even talk about abortion, and this and that and the other, and just shut the comic right there and say, fuck you, I'm done with it. Meanwhile, I'll tell you what on this part of it too. The kind of introduction into this where the dogs are getting into this dumpster and you see a dog and then a close-up on the dog's mouth with a little hand, with a little human hand sticking out of it. That is kind of shocking, and I'm not a big fan of that. However, I've got to give this artist a lot of credit here, because if you actually think about this, he did this in a pretty subtle, and for what he was doing here, for the quote-unquote joke he was making here, he did this as respectfully and ungraphically as he could. There's a lot of things in comics where, hey, you have to show, not tell. And if you think about this at all for 2 or 3 seconds, you're going to realize there's a lot more graphic ways he could have illustrated this. And I'm actually very impressed by the restraint that he showed in illustrating what was going on here. Another thing on this same subject is I don't know how killing defenseless babies in a mother's womb became a political thing, because it really should be a no-brainer for everybody in the fucking world to say, hey, you know what? Abortion's bad, and maybe we shouldn't just do it nilly-willy. I'll totally agree here with the lefties and other parts of the world that abortion can be necessary. However, as far as I'm concerned, and it's not as though I'm a doctor or anything, but it seems a lot of times that it's actually not necessary. Oh, a woman's right to choose and all that fucking bullshit. You know what? Actually, the woman fucking chose when she laid down on her fucking back and let a dude blow into her without a fucking rubber. The woman already made her fucking choice, you know? This whole thing of, like, it's a woman's body and, oh, the man doesn't get to have any say on this. It's just like, I'll tell you what, bitch, if you think that's true, then maybe you should fucking knock yourself up, because it takes 2 to fucking tango here, and the man actually does have quite a bit of say in this, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, the point that I'm really getting at here is that it's pretty fucked up that we're at a point in our society where killing defenseless babies in the womb is a supposedly political issue. And I actually really respect this artist for actually tackling this topic and putting a line in the sand. I haven't seen any interviews with this artist. I don't know what his particular real world standings are on this and that and the other. However, with good literature, with good comic books, when you read something, you come out of it a lot of times, you get a feeling for the creator, the people writing it, the people making it. Now, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, But honestly, I get the feeling here that this dude making this comic book is against abortion. And I am not going to hold that against him at fucking all. In fact, I think in this day and age, to sound off like you got a pair and make a political statement like this in your artwork in a time right now where nobody wants to deal with that, where we want to be Black Lives Matter and all that fucking bullshit, that this duder wrote and drew this and published it and sounded off like he got a pair actually makes me want to read and buy everything this guy ever fucking makes for the rest of his fucking life. Mary Boys is
Fucking based!
Mary Boys is fucking based as fuck. And I guess maybe we're getting to the point where these reviews I've done in the past, I've usually given them a score of basically 1 through 10 somewhere. This is a really good comic book. Is it the best comic book ever? No, it's not. But we're to a point with the grading of this, and with this comic book in particular, where what's great about comics is they don't all have to be, quote-unquote, the best thing ever. What this comic book demonstrates, and why it is so good, and why you should fund this comic on Indiegogo right now, is because what's awesome about artwork, period, is when people are really trying to do their own thing. Artwork is like its own fingerprint. And this comic book and this art is actually on a scale of its own. As far as I'm concerned, you cannot compare this to something like, say, Cyberfrog that's come out of Comicsgate, or Lone Star, or whatever the hell John Malin does that passes his artwork. But this is a unique thing in and of itself that I think is worth having. But anyway, guys, that's my review of Mary Boys. As I said in the beginning, you need to get off your ass and buy this off Indiegogo right motherfucking now. If you really like comic books and you haven't bought this, what the fuck are you doing with your life? But anyway, guys, that's all I really got for you this time. If you've liked this video, please click that like and subscribe button and leave a comment below. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HumaneGarbage. And as always, remember to hit the pipe harder than you hit your wife and kids.